Hello, welcome to today's talk, if we should call it that. Okay? I first want to let people know I'm not a teacher, I'm not a scholar, or anything like that. I'm just bringing helpful advice and things to you guys that are truth. Okay? So, today's topic, as listed in the description, is comparing and competing. This is common in the world today. There's a lot of comparing and competing that goes on in the world today. Okay? So we asked a couple key questions about that. Who does comparing and competing affect? First of all, it affects you. For that, we're going to go to Galatians 1, verse 10. Now, there are numerous verses that you could use for this about showing how people have changed and how people are influenced by competing and comparing. But this is a very good one I like. Okay? And it says this. This is one of the key things that I've noticed about people. My ex-spouse, for example, is a person of this accord. So here's what Galatians 1:10 says in the NIV. Am I now trying to win approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. Okay? Now, there's a few things to note in this thing. First of all, it's questioning and letting you know, where are your motives? One of the big faults with this world is the image technique, the image path. All about your image. How do people view you? How do people see you? How is it that people, what do they say about you? Okay? So, that's something that a lot of people fall into, unfortunately. They fall into that category of looking at things for the approval of other people. Whether it be you're trying to seek the approval of your parents, whether it's trying to seek the approval of a lover, or a friend, or a mentor, or anything. Doesn't matter. But in this verse, it clearly lets you know what's more important. Why are you seeking approval of man? Man can't do nothing to save your soul. Man can't do nothing to eliminate your sin that's in your life. Okay? The second thing it shows in this that I like to point out real quick is it says this, and it shows that looking to please people and to get approval of people, that would make you not a servant of Christ. Listen to the last part again. If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. That indicates in that verse that to be a servant of Christ means you don't run after people's approval. Okay? If someone likes you, cool. If they don't, big deal. Let me pose this question for you. Okay? And this might kind of sink in for you if you have problems with this. When you die and you take your last breath, is what people think about you, is that going to determine whether you go to heaven or hell? No. Is the approval that you get from people or the image you have in front of people, is that going to determine whether you go to heaven or hell? No. What is going to determine whether you go to heaven or hell? The only thing that's going to determine of going to heaven or hell is whether or not you have a personal relationship with the true Jesus of the Bible. And for that, you might want to go watch my other video called Jesus of the World versus Jesus of the Bible. They are not the same thing, just letting you know. Okay? So that's one of the things that it does. But it cultivates negativity. When you're comparing and competing against someone, a lot of times when you fail, as is natural with nature, okay, you tend to feel bad about yourself sometimes, okay? And it can put you in a very negative mindset, a very negative thing, okay? Just for the record, comparing and competing is how Cain came to kill Abel. Just letting you all know, okay? He was envious. Why was he envious? Because he was comparing and competing with his brother, okay? Who is better? Who's better at this? Who's better at that? Who's much more better at this? Who's more skilled at this? Who cares? There's things that you're talented at. There's things that I'm talented at, okay? It's not saying your skills are bad. It's not saying mine are bad, okay? Let's just put it that way. Secondly, it affects others. For that, we're going to look at Luke 9:46 to 48. Okay? For that verse, and this might help you out. An argument started among the disciples as to which of them would be the greatest. So, pay attention to that. The disciples of Jesus, okay? Not just anybody. You know, Matthew, Mark, but we're talking Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. You know, all of the disciples, Peter, Paul, okay, were debating who was better than the other one, who was the best. They were comparing and competing with each other, okay? Jesus, knowing their thoughts, took a little child and had him stand beside him. Then he said to them, whoever welcomes this little child in my name welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. For it is the one who is least among you who is the greatest. So let me put this in the way of the world, okay? Those people that are celebrities, those people that are high up at the echelon of society, those people are going to be the last if they go to heaven. And I'm saying if because that's an if. Okay? They're going to be the last. There's a reason why Jesus was a servant when he came here. He came here to be the last, to serve people. I remember a story in the Bible where Jesus himself washed the feet of his disciples. Okay? Jesus was a servant. He served other people. Okay? So the people that are high up in the world, they're going to be low if they go to heaven. The ones that are low, those are the people that's going to be high of importance in heaven. Okay? And again, we're not trying to compare and compete. What we're establishing is that God's sense of value is not man's sense of value. They're two different things. Okay? And lastly, it affects your relationship with God. When you compare and compete, you fall short, you start feeling bad about yourself, then you start, am I any good to God? You start doubting yourself. You start doubting your worth to God. More importantly than anything, that's one of the big things that happen. You start doubting who you are and the image you are with God based on what you fail at, what you're not good at. Okay? Let me clarify this. What you own, what you have, how much money you have, how good you look physically, what items you own, what land you possess, okay, how much is in your bank account, or how successful in the world you are, is not going to dictate where your value is. You can have all the stuff in the world and still be worthless as far as, and when I say worthless, I don't mean worthless as far as like you being worthless, but I mean worthless in the sense of all your accomplishments and all your possessions and all your material things are worthless in the sight of God. Okay? So the next question we ask is this: what does compare and compete do to you? Comparing and competing puts you in a mental fight for worth. Okay? When you compare and compete yourself with someone else, you're trying to determine, am I good enough? Am I better than them? Am I less than them? And in doing that, you're establishing your worth based off of where you stand with them. And that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to establish your worth and your importance and your value based off what the Bible says about you. Okay? Not what other people say about you, and not about where you match with other people. Okay? Let me put it this way. I love art and I love cooking. Okay? These are two talents that I love to do. Okay? But no matter how good I am, there's always going to be someone better. So if I put my worth and value on me being the best at something, then I'm going to fail constantly. Okay, and that goes for any talent in the world. Singers, cooking, martial arts, doesn't matter what it is. Okay, there's always going to be someone better. So if you put your worth in your social status, if you put your worth in your value of where you compare and match against other people, then you got it all messed up in the first place. Okay? So we have a couple verses for that, I believe. Okay. We have Jude 1:19, I believe. Okay. These are the people who divide you, who follow mere natural instincts and do not have the Spirit. Why is comparing and competing such a big thing in this world? Because this world is about division, and it's about trying to be the best at something, and it's about all the wrong things and all the wrong values. Now, I'll be honest, this world has no idea just how screwed up it's got stuff. Okay? It really don't. But it will find out on the day of judgment when God comes back, when Jesus comes back, and establishes and shows people what is going on. Okay? The next thing it does is it stops you from being unique. Okay? That's the next thing it does. I'll reiterate, it stops you from being unique. We have a few verses for that, and these are going to be some nail biters. Okay? It stops you from being unique. So the first one is 1 Corinthians 12, verse 12 through 25. Okay? And I know it's a little bit reading, but bear with me. Okay? Okay? Listen to this. Okay? Again, we're talking about uniqueness. There's a reason why you look like you, and even if someone else looks like you, they are not you. Okay? They are not your thoughts, they are not your heart, they are not your mind. There's literally nothing people can copy you down right to the perfect extent, okay, that there's nothing different. There's no way that's happening, okay? So listen to this. This is in 1 Corinthians 12 through 25, NIV version. Just as a body, though one has many parts, but all its many parts form one body, so it is with Christ, okay? For we were all baptized by one Spirit, so as to form one body, okay? Whether Jews or Gentiles, slave or free, and we were all given the one Spirit to drink. Okay? Even so, the body is not made up of one part, but of many. So let's make this clear. Common sense version. Okay? Your eyes have a purpose. They are to see things. They are to interpret visual. Okay? Your nose has a purpose to smell things. Okay? And it also, you breathe through it. Your ears have a purpose to hear things, okay? Your mouth has a purpose for eating, talking, expressing emotions, so on and so forth, okay? And your touch has a purpose when you touch things, okay? Your sense of sensitivity, Okay? As well as everything else. Your hands have purpose. We could go on and on. Okay? Individual parts. You get the point. Every part of your body has a purpose, and that purpose is different for each and every part of the body. Okay? Don't, like, for example, one ear, two ear. Okay? That, one eye, two eye. Yeah, you could probably go with that. But in the general realm of things, okay, my hand does not have the same purpose as my mouth. My feet do not have the same purpose as my ears. Okay? So, what comparing and competing attempts to do is it attempts to try to compare what you're good at with what someone else is good at. Okay? And in doing so, you try to emulate, or you try to do things in order to follow the flow, in order to follow the flow of life. Okay? You are called by God, not just as by God, but as a person created by God, to be unique, one of a kind. Okay? Okay? Let's continue reading. Now, if the foot should say, because I am not the hand, I do not belong to the body, it would not for that reason stop being part of the body. In other words, if your foot said, hey, I don't do what the hand does, so I'm not part of Kevin's body, that would not stop the foot from being a part of my body. Okay? Everything's got a purpose, a reason for it to exist. Okay? Comparing and competing makes you want to be good at something that perhaps you're not gifted at. Okay? You have to learn to follow your own calling by God on what God has given you talent of. Okay? Now, we could go on and read this entire thing, but I think you kind of get the gist of it. The whole thing talks about that each part of our body has different purposes for existing. Okay? But that's kind of a long one, so we'll jump to another one. Okay, this is a shorter one. This is Jeremiah 1:5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. The word I want you to focus on here is, I set you apart. Okay? He separated you. Okay? But he also made you unique, as a unique creation. Okay? There's nobody on this earth that's going to match you 100% on everything. In other words, there's nobody that's going to be an exact copy of you. Okay? No matter how bad we try, that's not going to happen. Okay? I think I made my point, though. You were created for a reason. So stop trying to be like other people. Stop it. First of all, you're not going to accomplish it. And even if you do accomplish it, you're not going to have the success that they would have, because you're not meant for that road. Your road is meant for you. Their road is meant for them. Okay? The next one is Romans 12, verse 4 to 5. Okay? For just as each of us has one body with many members, and these members do not all have the same function, so in Christ we, though many, form one body, and each member belongs to all the others. Now, how do we interpret this in the case of faith? In the case of faith, for example, someone might be good at preaching. Another person would be good at cooking food and providing meals for people. Okay? Another person might be good at just giving warm hugs and encouraging somebody. Okay? Remember, there are different fruits of the Spirit, and these fruits are what God has given you from the Holy Spirit to be good at. Okay? And that's the way that God wants to use you. Okay? So let me take myself, for example. I'm not a good speaker. Okay? I don't sound very good on video. Okay? At least in my opinion. But God has impressed it upon my heart to say things, okay, to people. And he has impressed it upon my heart to share the truth versus some cover-up version of the truth, okay? So that's the next thing, okay? It stops you from being unique. It makes you worldly. It makes you a copy of the world, okay? I don't know if any of you have ever watched the show The Chosen, but at the very beginning, you have this visual art of a bunch of white fishes going in the same direction, okay? And as the time goes by, there's a fish that turns around and goes the other way and it changes color, okay? And more do that. That's what God wants to do with you. He wants you to be unique. He wants you to be a fish that goes against the current, not with the current. The current that we're talking about is the current of the world. In layman's terms, what the world values, don't value if you're God's. It's not the same thing. The success of the world is not the success that God wants you to have. Okay? It's different. God has a different idea of success for you. Okay? Why? Because simple. Let's take an example of money. Okay? The world revolves around money. God knows your needs to live, yes, but he does not want you to be consumed by the attraction of money and for the greed of money. Okay? But let's go to the next one. Secondly, it produces envy, coveting, jealous, malice. There are certain examples in the Bible. Cain and Abel, comparing and competing. Esau and Jacob, comparing and competing. Joseph and his brothers, comparing and competing. Joseph's brothers were upset because Joseph and their brothers were trying to match each other of who was better. And when Joseph had the dream and was treated as a special child because of his calling by God, the brothers got jealous because they could not match what they determined was the worth of themselves versus Joseph. Okay? But let's look at one particular verse for this. We're going to go to Exodus 20, verse 17. And I'm sorry, I'm not the type of person that thinks that I need to have all this fancy smancy art, okay, in order to get my point across. But this is in Exodus 20:17. Listen to this. You should not covet, meaning you should not want your neighbor's house. You should not want your neighbor's wife, or his male or female servants, his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. Okay? What God has given to them is for them. God wasn't upset with Cain's offering. God was upset at the fact that Cain was trying to compare and compete with his brother. And he was also upset at the motive in Cain's heart. Okay? He knew his heart. Okay? So now we're posing the question, what is the purpose of comparing and competing according to Satan? Okay? There's two usual reasons for it. The first one is distractions. If Satan can get you distracted and focused on comparing and competing with someone, then he's getting you focused over here. You're not paying attention to where your vision should be, which is over here. So I'll give you a visual that might help understand that. You're driving a car, right? You keep your eyes on the road ahead of you. Why? Because that's where you're headed, right? So you can avoid anything that comes along. But if you're distracted and paying attention over here and you're driving, what's going to happen? You're going to crash into something, okay? Distractions. That's one of Satan's biggest tricks in this world today, is distractions. He's trying to distract you. Oh, I saw a UFO. Oh, Bigfoot. Oh, the Loch Ness Monster. Oh, aliens are coming back. Oh, aliens are going to invade the earth. La, 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 la. Distraction from Satan. That's all it is. All of it. Distractions. Okay? Another purpose that Satan has for comparing and competing is to create divisions among people. We're to be united as Christians, but that does not mean that we don't have personal likes and dislikes when it comes to things. For example, I feel most close to God when I'm hearing music. Okay? That's when I feel closest to God, because that's what is drawing me in. That's my flavor, if you will. Okay? Your flavor might be something different. Your flavor might be you feel most closely to God when you hear a good sermon. Okay? It's okay. This is why we have denominations. I want to say this real quick. Denominations aren't by God. Okay? They're made by man for man. Why? Because we all have different likes and dislikes. That's why. Okay? But there's other verses that you go into where it shows, put that, get away from all envy, coveting, jealousy, all bad things. I don't think we really need to go into too much detail about that, which I'm sure you already know. Okay. Now, when do we compare and compete? We compare and compete when we try to find our worth and value through what we own or have. Okay? We compare and compete when we try to justify ourselves through man's eyes. For that, we're going to go to Luke 16, chapter 15. Okay? For that one. He said to them, "You are the ones who justify yourselves in the eyes of others." Okay? But God knows your heart. What people highly value is detestable to God, meaning ugly to God. Okay? These are things that are ugly to God. Okay? In other words, he's saying what you value, what you put your value in, is not something that God puts his values in. By the way, for anybody who's joining, we're still talking about comparing and competing. This is a public teaching, so I'm just getting it out there for people. We compare and compete when we try to see who is better. A good example of that is me and my friend William. I'll give you the story behind that. So me and my friend William played Rummy, which is a card game. In the card game, oftentimes you keep score. However, as me and him were playing the game, I cared more about what the score was and who was winning, okay, than on enjoying the game. Why? Because I was more focused on what the value of it was. And as I would lose sometimes in the game, I would start feeling really bad about myself. Because I was connecting my self-worth, okay, as a person, I was connecting that to whether or not I was winning or losing. So I was doing exactly what comparing and competing does. So how did I address the situation? So what I told him is from now on, we're just going to play for fun. We're not going to keep score. Okay? It might seem silly to some people, but that eliminated, okay, what Satan was trying to do in that game for me. It kept my heart in a good place where I'm enjoying the game and enjoying my time with my friend versus trying to compare and compete with him. Okay? We compare and compete when we rival with others. Okay? See if this is the same one that I did before. So for this one, we got Galatians 5:19 through 20. Okay, the acts of the flesh are obvious: sexual immorality, impurity, debauchery, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissensions, and factions. Not a whole lot going on there, but when we rival with people, when we try to compare and compete and try to race against people, that's where we oftentimes get off track. We also compare and compete when we try to live the behaviors of the world. For that one, we're going to Romans 12, verse 2, I believe, or 2, verse 12, one or the other. We'll see. 12, verse 2. Do not conform to the pattern of this world. What is the pattern of this world? What this world values, what this world likes and dislikes, what it says is important. Okay. And not only that, but what it says is okay and not okay. For example, this world says same-sex relationships are okay. They've made laws about it. Doesn't make it right with God. They've also said, okay, abortion is okay. They also said it's okay to have sex outside of marriage. Okay? That's the pattern of the world that they're talking about. But be transformed by the renewing of your mind, then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is. In other words, you will be able to find out and to know what is God's will when you're no longer conforming yourself, or when you're no longer following the patterns of the world and living by what the world says is important. Okay? We also compare and compete when we out of selfish ambition. Okay? Now notice it says a word there. It says selfish ambition. It's not just any ambition, it's selfish ambition. So that means that there's ambitions that are not selfish. Okay? It means there are ambitions that are good. Okay? Here's what it says. But if we harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition, meaning ambition is based on us. That's what selfish is. Ambitions that are based on us and us alone, what we want in our hearts. Do not boast about it or deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. Okay, so it's letting you know selfish ambition, self-centered ambition is demonic and unspiritual. Okay? So I'll give you an example of it. I want to own 50 cars. Selfish ambition. Demonic. Okay? You don't need 50 cars. Okay? I don't care if it's an ambition you have or not. It's self-centered. So the next thing on the list is this. Where does comparing and competing put you in your heart and mind? It creates low self-esteem. It creates boasting. And it creates pride. Okay? So for that, we're going to go to Luke 18, 9 through 14 for that. Oh, lovely. Okay. This is the parable of the Pharisees and tax collectors. Now, listen to this, okay? This is Jesus. Jesus told a parable. He said, 2 men went up to the temple to pray. One was a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. Okay. Today that would equate to one was a churchgoer or a pastor or something like that, a religious person, and the other one was an IRS person or a tax person. Okay. The Pharisee stood by himself and prayed, God, I thank you that I'm not like other people. I'm better than other people. I'm not like the robbers. I'm not like the evildoers. I'm not like all the horrible murderers and bad people in this world. Or even like the tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give all a tenth of what I have. Okay, so boasting, prideful, pride. Pride was the same sin that made Satan fall from heaven. Pride. Pride in himself. Okay? But the tax collector stood at a distance. He would not even look up to the heavens. But he beat on his chest. Okay? God, have mercy on me. I'm a sinner. I tell you that this man, rather than the other one, went home justified before God. What's in your heart? Okay? Is your heart prideful? Is your heart filled with boasting about yourself? I'm good at this. I'm so good at this. I'm so good at that. I'm great at this. I'm great at that. Or are you keeping your spirit low? Are you keeping your spirit humble? Okay? Another place it does is it puts you in a place in your mind of approval for others for a validation of who you are. That one is Galatians 1:10, which we read earlier. Okay, so we don't need to read that one again. But when you seek people's approval, here's the problem with that. There's always going to be someone who likes something different. So let me give you an idea. Okay, if Kevin, decide to like, let's say I decide I want to like the same color as this person, which is black, because they love black, because I want to please them, right? Someone else may like a different color. Now what have I done? Now I've made myself join with this person who likes black, but I can't like black and this color at the same time and be fully committed. I mean, I could like both colors, but you get the point. Okay? The point is this. There's always going to be someone, no matter where you stand in life, if you're seeking people's approval, there's always going to be someone who feels the opposite way. If you stand with abortion's bad, there's always going to be people that are feeling abortion's okay. If you're feeling Jesus is the only way for salvation, there's always going to be people that feel the opposite. Okay? That shows you that the point of approval of other people and the point of getting other people's liking of you is worthless. Okay? So here's a better way to look at it. If people like you, good. If they don't, oh well. Your value is not dependent upon what they think of you. My kid's mother think of me as the worst possible human on the face of the earth. But my value is not placed in what she thinks based off of her screwed up mind. Okay? Next question on the list. Okay? Why do we compare and compete? Ecclesiastes 4, verse 4 through 6. Okay? Is one of that one. Okay? Okay? So we're going to read that real quick. Okay? And this is envy. Talking about envy. And I saw that all toil and all achievement spring forth from one person's envy of another. All achievement, majority of the time, springs forth from a point of envy. Okay? Or self-centeredness. Okay? Why do people oftentimes, I want to get a college degree, I want to get this. They do it to make a better life, but oftentimes it's to prove that they have self-worth. As if a piece of paper tells you what your self-worth is. No. Okay? Your value is not placed in anything you can get. It's not placed on any doctorate or any degree or anything. Okay? Your value is in what the Bible says and what God says about you. Understand that. And that has nothing to do with your level of education or your level of skill or your level of training. Okay? So it says, I saw that all toil, meaning all work, and all achievement spring from one person's envy of another. This too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Okay? It goes on, fools fold their hands and ruin themselves. Better one handful of tranquility than two handfuls of toil. Layman's terms, better one hand of peace than two hands of lots of work. Good example of this that I thought about this a while ago is this. You get people in this world that work so hard, they work 2-3 jobs to make a life for their family, but they're not getting to spend time with their family. So let me ask you this. If you're working your butt off for a goal for your family, okay, but you're not even able to spend time with your family, to know your family, what's the point of doing the work if you miss out on the relationship? Okay? Another one for that is Proverbs 14, verse 30. Okay? A heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones. When you're envious, you burn yourself out because you're always trying to work to compete with someone else. Okay? You can never have enough. This is one of the main things that motivate people to get greedy, to want more than enough than what they have. Remember, one of the key things with God is being content with what He's given you. Okay? Look at me. I don't own my own home. I don't have a car. Okay? I don't have a job. Okay? But I don't care. Okay? Because my worth is not in any of those things. And I don't need more than what I've got. But if God grants me more, I welcome it. Okay? Next one is Galatians 5:19 through 20 for jealousy. I don't necessarily think we need to read this, but you can read this on your own time. Okay? Jealousy is why we compare and compete. Jealousy is being jealous of someone, wanting something that they have, wanting, if you're jealous of a person. But oftentimes, jealousy itself comes from fear. Okay? Why do people feel jealous? A lot of times. They feel jealous because they have fear in their heart of whether it's fear of losing something, or fear of they're not good enough, or fear of whatever. But make no joke about this. All jealousy comes from fear. Okay? The only jealousy that does not come from fear is God's jealousy. And by the way, on that topic, God's jealousy is not the same thing as man's jealousy. God's jealousy is divine and holy and selfless. Man's jealousy, self-centered, ignorant, and selfish. Okay? I mean, just think about it. Think about people who date. When you're jealous of someone, you're not focused on what your partner's thinking or feeling. You're focused on what you're feeling. Self-centered. Okay? And for this one, we're going to 1 Corinthians 4, verse 7. And anybody that sees this, that has heard this before, I'm basically catching my page up with some of the lessons that I've given. So that's what I'm doing. All right, so this one is 1 Corinthians 4, 7. We don't respect God's choices to gift to people as he wish. Means we don't respect God's choice to give a talent to someone, or to give a gift or ability to someone as he chooses. Okay? So here's what 1 Corinthians 4, 7 says. For who makes you different from anyone else? God does. What do you have that you did not receive? And if you did receive it, why do you boast as though you did not? Okay? God has given you certain gifts. And when you disrespect those gifts by being unhappy with those gifts, okay, you disrespect the one who sent it. So let me put it in layman's terms for you with that. Do you think for a split second that the food I cook, okay, has the right to tell me how to make the food? The food that I'm putting in a dish, do you think that those vegetables, that fruit, that meat, do you think those things have the right to tell me how I should make the dish? No. Same thing with man. Man doesn't have the right to tell God or to dictate to God how it should be made. This is one of the prime examples why you end up with lesbians, gays, and transsexuals, okay, and other things, because they don't realize they have to be happy with what God has made them to be. If you're a man, you're a man. God made you that way. You don't have the right to fight against what God says. You might be stupid enough to try, but trust me, you're not going to win. Okay? Let's just put it at that. And another one on that is James 1:17. Okay? Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. Okay? Unlike us and our emotions, God doesn't change. Okay? And the last reason why we compare and compete is fear and lack of trust in God. You compare and compete to gain things because you don't want to have that trust in God to meet your needs. Okay? And the last part about this, okay? So bear with me, we're almost finished. How to resist comparing and competing. Okay? Pay attention to your walk, not others. For anyone who has ever seen horses running on a racetrack, okay, they have blinders on. Why? So that the horses don't see the other horses. They're just running their race. Okay? So that's what you need to do. You need to learn to run your race and only focus on your race with God. Okay? You're to be there to help support and encourage other people, but you're not meant to be there to be all paying attention to what they're doing and not paying attention to what you're doing. Okay? Each one should test their own actions. Then they can take pride in themselves alone without comparing themselves to someone else. This is a perfect example of Bible verse that directly shows that comparing and competing and comparing yourself to someone else is not a good thing. Okay? Without comparing themselves. Okay? Okay? The next thing, you have to crucify your desires. Okay? This is another way to battle against or resist comparing and competing. If we crucify our flesh with its passions and desires, then we should not be led to be needing to be envious, jealous, comparing and competing. Oh, but this lady over here has a beautiful husband. Why don't I have that? Now you're comparing and competing. Now you're looking at your life and not seeing what you have. You're seeing what you don't have. Okay? And that's what Galatians 5:24 through 26 says. Crucify your flesh. Since we live by the Spirit, let us keep in step with the Spirit. Okay? Let us not become conceited, provoking and envying each other. Okay? The next part is do it for God. Whatever you do, do it for God. Verses for that: 1 Corinthians 10:31, Colossians 3:23, and Ephesians 6, verse 7. Okay? Three of those. How else to resist comparing and competing? You don't need to compare and compete. For that, you want 2 Corinthians 10, verse 12. Okay? How do you resist comparing and competing? Do nothing out of rivalry or conceit. Okay? Do everything in love. But do nothing out of rivalry. Do nothing to match or to see where you match up with someone else. For that, Philippians 2, verse 3 and 4. I'm running low on battery, so I do apologize. Do not match this world. This is one of my key things that I try not to do in my life. I try not to value or to care about the things that this world says is valuable. Okay? For that, Romans 12:2, which we read before. Present yourself to God approved. For that, you want to go to 2 Timothy 2, verse 15. Okay? And there you go, comparing and competing. Okay? I hope this has been helpful to you guys. I hope that anyone who sees this learns that you don't need to compare and compete with other people for approval or for validation or for value. Okay? Have a good day and thank you for taking the time.